Today is the first day of special voting for the 2021 municipal elections. The IEC has reported a record number of registrations for special votes. We do understand that that briefing has just begun. Let's take you there now live.
Greetings to everybody here. The first votes in the 2021 municipal elections were cast from 8 today as voters who had applied for special votes began casting their ballots at voting stations and home visits around the country. Reports from provinces indicate that special voting got off to a steady start, with a vast majority of voting stations reporting being open and ready on time, and home visit teams deployed as planned. Provincial reports reflect that voting is underway, with a few exceptions where there were delays due to bad weather. Overnight storms blew away tents in Gauteng, the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and Northwest, but these were either reinstalled or replaced in time for the opening of voting stations. There were also a few incidents where landlords, in other words, people owning voting stations, at the 11th hour, reneged on lease agreements for the use of voting stations. Alternative arrangements were made in time, and the voting process has not been hampered in any significant way. A record of 1.1 million applications for special votes were approved for these elections, 49% of which being home visits and 51% being votes to be cast at voting stations. As we know, special voting will take place today and tomorrow between 8 and 5 on both days. There are, however, 1,174 voting stations where no applications for special votes were received. These voting stations will therefore not be opening on both days of special votes. We have a report of an incident where the Commission was unable to open 8 voting stations. This was in Camberdown, KwaZulu-Natal, where community members are unhappy with matters related to traditional leadership. Given the record scale of the 2021 municipal elections, the Electoral Commission is highly satisfied with the start of special voting. Besides offering voters who cannot vote at the voting station on 1st November an opportunity to participate, special votes also provide the Commission with an opportunity to identify and resolve any challenges ahead of the election. The Commission wishes to indicate that it has made provision for pens at all voting stations. This will be sanitized after each use, given the need to avoid the infection of voters through the exchange of pens. However, where possible, voters are encouraged to bring their own pens. So there is no situation where there won't be any pens at the voting stations. Those have been provided by the Commission and will be available at all voting stations. Nonetheless, members of the voting public are encouraged, where possible, to bring their own pens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CEO. A very encouraging report indeed. I'm going to open the floor for questions. Identify yourself, and then let's make sure that we get these elections going. I'm already seeing 3 hands. If I may get my colleagues to assist us with providing journalists with the microphone.
Sinjanji Chauke from the SABC News Channel. I just want to want to get more information with regards to Camperdown, incidents at Camperdown. Just more clarity, those stations never opened at all, or did you make provision for people to still go and cast, do the special voting? Just give us more details with regards to that.
Okay. Let's go to the second one.
My name is Noni Mukati from Independent Media. It was mentioned that 8 voting stations were not open due to some unhappiness from community members. I would like to find out what contingency plans are being put in place to ensure that those particular voting stations do operate on Monday. And then in terms of just the weather, obviously we don't know what the conditions will be on Friday in some parts, what measures are being put in place, because some areas obviously have been blown away by the wind, particularly tense. Thanks.
There's one hand here.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's Natasha Curry here from
Let's
SABC
get your volume, a little bit of volume there, yeah?
Okay, it's Natasha Curry here from SABC News. Just a follow-up to Noni's question. Dr. Mamabolo, I'm not so sure if you're aware of the Eastern Cape. There's certain voting stations that weren't open due to service delivery protests. What contingency measures have been put in place, like Noni asked, around such voting stations? Will voters be able to vote tomorrow? Have you received the reports maybe from law enforcement agencies? Because on Monday, the JCPS cluster had assured South Africans that all voting stations will be open throughout this weekend and no service delivery protests will be tolerated during the voting period. Thank you.
All right, let me allow the CEO to deal with those 3 questions, and then we'll take the last round of questions. Yes, we can do that, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the questions. We are aware of the service delivery protests in Antilene in the Eastern Cape. Now, what is going to happen is that those voting stations have to open and will open because there are people in those communities who have applied for special votes, and those people are entitled, like all citizens, a right to participate in the election. So working together with the security services, we should be in a position to get voting going in those areas. The weather, we've put plans together with the provincial disaster management teams to restore operations in the event that we are negatively affected by inclement weather in particular. Which is why, despite the fact that some tents were blown away in Northwest, KZN, Gauteng, we're able to restore those tents in time to resume operations. The Camperdown issue is related to disputes about traditional leadership and communities supporting one of the traditional leaders, where there's dispute about who the authentic leader of that traditional community is. So there is mobilization against our process, and again, even then, working together with the security agencies, we should be able to open those voting stations because there are people who have applied for special votes, and those people are entitled to participate. So our contingency plans in respect of that is to open the station and have those stations function so that those that wish to participate may cast their ballots. So all these issues have been noted by the security agencies and will ensure that between now and tomorrow those people are serviced and their special votes received.
Let me take the last round of questions. I'm seeing 2 hands already. Natasha, proceed.
Thank you. It's Natasha again. Mr. Mamabolo, there's a growing concern because for the first time in the history of the country, you have an election date that's on Monday. Hence, you've got this long weekend. Some people are, have gone away on holiday. Is not a concern, especially in regards to, the voter turnout of Monday. I know we've got 26.2 registered, 6.2 million registered voters. But is the Commission not concerned about the voter turnout on Monday? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Noni?
Thank you. I'd like to go back to a point that Mr. Mamabolo made earlier about just the few incidents where landlords, sort of backtracked on their leases at the 11th hour. I mean, this is concerning. What steps are being taken to ensure that this does not happen? Because I've never heard where there's special voting and people at the 11th hour change their mind. So I just wanted to find out what steps are being taken against these landlords, and are you anticipating any further incidents such as these? Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other question, I'm going to allow Ntate Mamabolo to answer the two questions, and then we'll be wrapping up. CEO?
The issue of voter turnout is a perennial concern of the Commission. We are always concerned about voter turnout because we want, as the Commission, to avail an opportunity so that the maximum number of South Africans participate in the elections, which is why we've provided for facilities for voters to vote with ease. So you are right again in saying this may be a long weekend and people may have traveled yesterday and so on. Our call is that if you have traveled, please do come back to your voting station on time. Because you won't be able to vote anywhere else than in the voting district in which you are registered. Unlike in national and provincial elections where you have an opportunity to vote outside of your district, on this occasion that won't be possible. So all those who may have traveled have until tomorrow really to travel back into places where they are registered, where they are ordinarily resident. And we want to encourage them to come back and take advantage of the facilities that we have availed for them to take part in shaping the local affairs of their communities. The landlords who have reneged at the last minute, it's a concern, but it's not a matter that requires us to take legal action. We will be talking to those landlords. The important thing and our primary focus at the moment is to get operations going, is to get alternatives and get the operations going so that we are not disrupted. I think that's our position at the moment, and it's not a prevalent phenomenon. It's an isolated incident, and our focus, as I say, is to re-establish operations and get going with the electoral process.
I see a hand, CEO. The very last one. After that, I'm wrapping up.
Apologies, we have a question, an online question from Slindile at ENCA. And the question reads as follows. In Alexandra, materials such as PPEs and candidate lists were not available for more than 3 hours after the voting stations opened. Why was this the case? Will they be avoided tomorrow on voting? Will they availed tomorrow on voting day? And how many stations were affected? Thank you.
Is that the only question from online so that we deal with that and wrap up?
That's the last one, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. PPEs, CEO?
No, there's enough personal protection equipment that we've procured for all the 185,000 staff who will be working at voting stations. So if in some voting stations in Alexandra they did not receive that, it's an aberration that can be corrected through our normal logistical operation. It is not a plan not to provide PPE. We have enough in stock, and that shouldn't be a problem. We'll intervene through our network of logistical operations to ensure that everybody has the PPE that they need to operate the voting stations.
Thank you so much, CEO. Ceci, I'm closing. Okay.
Charlotte Kibani from EWN would like to know, is the IEC aware that some people were not accepted for home visits who applied due to system glitches? We know of 2020 in at least 2 cases this has happened where husbands and wives who registered together were null and void.
Come again,
Say the last part, yeah?
They were saying that they know of 2,000 people in 20 who were then denied special votes because of system glitches.
All right.
No, 2,000 sounds a bit of an exaggerated figure.
True.
But here's the principle. You have to be registered on the voters' roll first for you to be able to access a special vote. So if you were not registered for whatever reason, the special voting dispensation does not avail to you. So the first threshold, therefore, is to be on the voters' roll, and once you're on the voters' roll, you can make an application for a special vote. People who may have experienced technical glitches and who came to the station during the registration weekend of the 18th and 19th of September, those people, provision has been made for them. They'll be able to vote because a person who has proved that they visited the station on the 18th and 19th, but perhaps they are not on the voters' roll, those people are entitled to vote in terms of Section 7 of the Municipal Electoral Act. So no one who has genuinely came to a station will be disenfranchised because of technical glitches. Those people have been recorded and lists have been prepared for that purpose and captured on the voter management devices. Thank you very much.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's leave it at that. We'll keep in touch on our social media pages and any other communique, but so far, so good. Our country is voting. Thank you, CEO and DCO.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was the Chief Electoral Officer, Sai Mamabolo, briefing the nation with regards to day 1 of special voting. We do understand that the IEC has said it's been a steady start with the vast majority of voting stations opening up on time, with an exception of 8 voting stations in KZN that did not open due to unhappy members. Also, a number of voting stations not opening on time because of bad weather in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and the Northwest. There have also been issues raised about some voting stations not having enough PPE to open up. Our reporter Slindelo Masikane asked that question about a voting station in Alex here in Johannesburg, with the IEC indicating that that must have been an issue that should have been addressed because PPE has been provided for all 185,000 staff working at voting stations. Also, another big issue that was identified by the IEC is that certain landlords reneged on their lease agreements and the voting stations were unable to open up on time. But the IEC saying they're highly satisfied with special votes turnout, and this is an opportunity for the IEC to be able to identify and resolve issues come the 1st of November, where they will start with the voting that's set to take place on the 1st of November. The IEC will most likely brief possibly later on or tomorrow, depending on their progress with special voting and any other issues that have been identified. Our reporters are across the country, and they will be bringing you live updates with regards to special voting today. We'll be back after this short break. Stay tuned to ENCA.